In this lecture, we will be discussing about operating system generation and system boot. So, we have been discussing about operating system in past few lectures. Now, we will be seeing what are the ways a operating system can be generated and what are the ways we can designing a operating system. So, let us start. So, basically there are two ways or two approaches in which an operating system can be designed. So, the first approach is design code and implement an operating system specifically for one machine at one site. So, in this approach what we are doing is we are designing operating system specifically for one machine. So, specifically for one machine. So, we are just taking into account or we are just looking at one machine and we are seeing what are the requirements of that machine and we are designing the operating system specifically for only that machine. So, this may be a good approach if you are only concerned about that particular machine. But if you think of it in a larger perspective, this may not be a very efficient design technique, because we want an operating system to be able to work in multiple systems, right, without having to redesign it. So, we come to the second approach. So, in the second approach, operating system are designed to run on any of a class of machines at variety of sites with a variety of peripherals configurations. So, in this second approach, we are designing the operating system in such a way that it will be able to run on any of a class of machines at variety of sites with a variety of peripheral configurations. That means this operating system will be able to run a class of machines or a variety of machines irrespective of their configurations. That means this operating system will able to run on a class of machines or a variety of machines irrespective of their configurations, okay, or irrespective of the kind of machines that they are. The operating system will be able to run on them easily. So, for example, let us say that you have an operating system, let us say you have downloaded the Linux Mint operating system and you have it on a CD and you install it in your computer using that CD and it is installed. Now, let us say your friend is having another computer with different kind of hardware configurations and completely different machine. And even on your friend system you are able to install that Linux operating system from that same CD. So, we see that irrespective of the machines that you have, the operating system can be installed in both of this machine. So, this is the second way we designed that operating system, which is a much more efficient and also the most common design technique that is used today. Now the question may come to your mind is that if the machine are having different hardware configuration or different peripheral configuration, then how will the operating system be installed in these different systems if their configurations are different? So, the answer to this question lies here. The system must then be configured or generated for each specific computer site. A process sometimes known as system generation or sysgen is used for this. So, in order to solve that problem, there is something known as system generation or sysgen. So, the system generation helps in generating your operating system in such a way that it will be compatible or in such a way that it can work for that specific machine. So, with the help of this sysgen, the operating system will be generated in such a way that it will be suitable for the specific computer on which you are installing it. So, that is why system generation or sysgen is used for. So there are some kind of information that must be determined by the sysgen program, so that it will know how to generate a particular operating system for a particular machine. So let us see what are those informations that must be determined by the sysgen program. So the following kinds of information must be determined by the sysgen program. So first is what CPU is to be used. So the system program must find out what is the processing unit that has to be used in that machine, because there are different kind of processing units that we have. So depending upon that, the operating system has to be generated. So the system program determined what is the CPU that is to be used. Secondly, how much memory is available. It has to be find out how much memory is available in that system, to find out if that operating system can be installed in that system, and even it is installed, how can we allocate the memory in such a way that it will work in a good and efficient way. And then the third thing is what devices are available. So the system program has to determine what are the devices that are attached to this specific machine, and what are the models of this, and how it connected to that machine. So by knowing all of this, the operating system will be able to function properly with the device that are connected to that particular machine. And the thing is what operating system options are desired, and next is what operating system options are desired. So the system program has to find out what is the machine intending from the operating system. That means what does the system wants the operating system to do, what are the kind of system the system or this machine want. So the system program has to find out what are the operating system options that is system wants. So that is depending upon that, it can generate the operating system for that particular task or a set of tasks, then this machine wants the operating system to or from. So that is how the sysgen program helps in generating the kind of operating system that is required for a particular machine. So it determines all these things, and depending upon this operating system will be generated for that particular machine. So that is how this operating system generation works. Come to the next topic, that is system boot. So what do you mean by this system boot? You must have heard this term booting many times. So you must have heard people saying that boot your computer or reboot your computer and so on. So what is the meaning of this term booting? So first of all, the procedure of starting a computer by loading the kernel is known as booting the system. The procedure of starting a computer by loading the kernel is known as booting the system. So after everything is ready, when you are going to start your computer, the core of the operating system, which is the kernel, has to be loaded, and it is at that time your computer starts off. The process of starting the computer by loading the kernel is known as the booting process. Now the question is, how does this happen? You have the hardware and you have the operating system installed, everything is ready, fine. Now the kernel has to be loaded into the memory, but the hardware itself does not even know how to load the kernel, or how to locate the kernel and how to load it into the memory. Your hardware does not know. So how does the system booting takes place? So for that, we have something known as the bootstrap program or the bootstrap loader. So, on most computer systems, a small piece of code known as the bootstrap program or bootstrap loader locates the kernel. So, the function of bootstrap program or the bootstrap loader is to locate the kernel and help it to load it into the memory, because the hardware itself does not know how to do. So, how to do it? So, this is a very important program, that is the bootstrap program or the bootstrap loader. This is the first thing that starts off when you switch on your computer. So, this process is known as booting. The bootstrap loader helps to locate the kernel and it will help to load that kernel into the memory and the starting of your operating system. So, that process is known as booting. Now, this bootstrap program and the bootstrap loader, it is in the form of ROM or read only memory, because the RAM is in an unknown state at system startup. So, ROM is convenient because it needs no initialization and cannot be infected by a computer virus. So, this line tells us that the bootstrap program or the bootstrap loader reside in your computer system. So, it is the form of a read only memory. So, I already discussed this type of memory. Okay, we have read only memory, which is ROM, and RAM. So, I already told you RAM is volatile in nature, which means that the contents of the RAM always erased or it is lost when the power to the RAM is switched off, but the contents of the ROM are never erased, it remains in it all the time. So, the bootstrap program, it is in the ROM, and why it is in the ROM? Because this is the first program that locates when you start your computer, and it has to be always there and it has to be always ready. But if you store it into the RAM, what happens is that what I told you, RAM is volatile. So, when the power is gone, the contents of the RAM is erased. So, when the system is just starting off, we did not know in what state the RAM is in, but the ROM is always ready and ROM always has its contents in it, no matter there is power on or off. So, the bootstrap program is always there in the ROM, because it always has to be in a consistent and ready state, and ROM is convenient because it needs no initialization and cannot be infected by a computer virus. So, why does it say that it cannot be infected by a computer virus? So, what does the computer virus do? When a computer virus infects a system, it tries to modify something or manipulate something so that something does not work or something start in a different way. So, that is what a computer virus does. But if your bootstrap program resides in the read only memory, from the name itself it says that it is a read only memory. The contents of the ROM can only be read, it cannot be modified. So, virus cannot do anything to the ROM. Alright. Now, there is another term that I want to discuss, that is called firmware. So, you must have heard this term firmware in your mobile devices, or we say is update your firmware of this version, something like that. So, firmware is also a kind of ROM, read only memory. So, a firmware is also a kind of read only memory in small devices like your mobile. The bootstrap loader, the bootstrap program and the operating system, both of them resides in the ROM or the firmware. But the disadvantage of this is that if you want to change something in ROM, then you have to change the entire ROM chip, because we know that nothing can be modified. But this problem has been solved by the something known as EEPROM stands for erasable programmable read only memory. So this is also a kind of ROM in which the content can be read, but by giving a explicit command you can make it writing. So it can be writable. So the kind of firmware where the bootstrap loader and the operating system both resides in the ROM are used for small devices like your mobile devices and all. But for most of the big computer like your desktop computer or your laptop, the bootstrap program or the bootstrap loader resides in the ROM, and your main operating system that resides in the disk. So the bootstrap loader helps in locating the operating system or the kernel of the operating system. It also helps to load into the memory. So that is how most common computer systems work now. So when the full bootstrap program has been loaded, it can traverse the file system to find the operating system kernel, load it into memory and start its execution. It is only at this point that the system is said to be running. So when the full bootstrap program has been loaded and it locates the operating system into kernel and load it to the memory and it start its execution, and that point we says that your system is running. So first we booted the system, and for booting the bootstrap loader or the bootstrap program is helping us, and once the bootstrap loader finds the kernel or locates the kernel and loads it into the memory and starts execution, then we say that our system is running. So that is how a system comes from a booting stage to the running stage. So there was all about your system generation and system boot. I hope that was clear to you. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one. Thank you.